friends, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome back to the channel. So we are taking a break from Mythographic Magical Earth with our single element tutorial series, and we are jumping into Mythographic Menagerie for this weekend's video. I feel like I haven't done a very good job promoting this project, but if you have been over on my community tab, I am hosting a community color for the month of March. Um, Ryan Colors did the beta fish page in Kirby's book last month, and so this month I thought I would host one, and I selected the book, but you guys selected the image, so that's what we're gonna work on today. I had originally wanted to do this in one video. Multiple part videos don't tend to do very well, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So this will be in multiple parts. And I just want to walk you guys through the project and the supplies that I am using, and I will talk more about them as we get into the actual project. But again, we are working on in Mythographic Menagerie, and I gave you guys 3 images to choose from to vote on, and you selected the Jackalope page, and I love this image. I think it's a good choice for a community color. It's in terms of mythographic books, relatively uncomplicated, and so um, I wasn't sure at first what medium I was going to use, but then a lovely subscriber gifted me these Gansai Tambi watercolors off of my Amazon wish list, and as soon as I saw them, I knew that they would be perfect for this image. So thank you, KP, for gifting these to me. They've been a lot of fun to play with, and I'll talk a little bit more about the paints once we start with the project. Um, you won't be able to see it because of the way I have my camera set up, but I also have one of my watercolor palettes purely using the wells on this. So I need to go in and fix some things in here just for mixing. I didn't want to bust out my ceramic palette, so I cleaned one of these up and used it, but it'll be off camera. I was also testing out not specifically this Caran d'Ache brush. This is the felt tip. I actually haven't played with this one yet, but it came in a 3-piece set with this solid, like almost marker tip style brush and 2 regular water brushes. So you'll notice I started out playing around with those, and then I switched over to a regular brush about partway through one of my Craft Mo brushes. But let's get into the project. So I'm going to transition over. I did speed it up a little bit just for the sake of time. So I'm excited to share this with you guys. And if you want to participate, if you have this book, I would love to see what you're working on. There is a hashtag MythoMarch. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me. I am Queen of Flannel over there, and I would love to share some of your work. So let's jump into the project. All right, so at this point, I'm really just I'm playing with the paint. I'm trying to get a feel for what the texture of this paint is going to be. I don't think at this point I was doing any mixing, but I didn't swatch these before I started this project. I really just I just kind of took a look at them and decided to roll with it. I know a lot of you are probably just collectively gasping at this point, but sometimes I don't enjoy swatching supplies. It's just I don't know, I find it sometimes incredibly tedious. But anyways, back to the image. So I chose to start out on the horns on one of the jackalopes first, just because it's a, you know, I wanted them to be a lighter color. I didn't want to go in with anything too super dark while I was still trying to figure out the paints and the texture of them. And as I mentioned, I am using one of the Caran d'Ache water brush pens. This came in a pack of 3 with 2 size like regular brush pens, and then the felt tip pen. I will put a link to these in the description below, but 100% here, the quality of the brushes is good. I found it, you know, no more difficult or whatever, you know, to use than any other brush pen that I've tried, but these are a pain in the butt to fill. There is a tiny little opening on the canister to fill these pens, and I tried submerging it in water and squeezing it and squeezing it and squeezing it to suck the water into it, and it didn't work. And finally I ended up just holding it under a really thinly trickling faucet and squeezing the button just to fill the pen. So that right there for me was you know, a big detractor. It was a pain. But the brushes are nice. Nice to work with, easy to work with. I just feel like for this type of project, it wasn't the best choice. Not specifically the brand, just a brush pen in general. And you'll notice later that I switch over to a regular brush. I think these brush pens are good for, like, if you're using watercolor pencils or Inktense, something that you're laying down on your paper and you're activating right on the paper. But I just found that working with actual paint and attempting to use watercolor techniques, it was more of a hindrance, and I didn't have the control over my water that I would like. So hence the reason why I switched over to a regular brush. And so, yeah, for this jackalope, this color kind of scared me at first. I was doing some mixing over on the side on my other palette, and this came out way more purple than I had anticipated. And so I kind of backed off a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's not quite what I thought that color was going to be. I was going for more of a brown, and it might not look like that on camera, but it was very, very like purple red in person. And so I tried to tone it down a little bit with this second jackalope over here. And then as it started to dry, it lightened up, and I was a little less freaked out by the intensity of it, and actually really enjoyed, like, I liked how it looked. And so I kept going with it, and was able to kind of, you know, find a nice, like, happy medium. And I didn't even really like lift any of it up to try and fix it. I just I had a moment where I was like, oh, if I keep playing with this, I'm going to ruin the paper. So I'm gonna just let it dry and work on the other side. And if I have to come back and, you know, make any like alterations to the first one, then we'll see how it goes. But we'll let the paper dry first. And yeah, so not pro tip, because I am absolutely not a watercolor pro. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't like the intensity of what you're doing before you just start playing with it, and especially on coloring book paper that's not specifically designed for water mediums. Just let it be for a minute, let it mellow. Don't hit it with too much water, because then you just run the risk of ruining your paper. And so at this point, I think I had used up my my mixture on my palette, and I wanted to come in and do some shading in some of these areas, and I ended up with more of a brownish color than what I had intended. And it was on that second jackalope on the right, and so because I was going back and forth in an attempt to kind of keep them symmetrical, I ended up just using what I had for the jackalope on the right's paws and going back and adding them to the jackalope on the left to kind of keep them similar. My goal was to largely keep this symmetrical. I wanted to keep it as matching mirrored on each side. But I did end up, I liked the way the paws came out. It just it added a little something. And so now I'm just trying to go in and do just a little like detail around the feet and around some of like the creases, like where the legs and the body would kind of potentially I can talk today. Cast a little bit of a shadow and keep more light on the face. And so, as I mentioned, these paints are the Kuretake Gansai Tambi. If I butchered that, I apologize. They are made in Japan, and I believe these come in a couple different sets. I will link to the set that I was gifted in the description below, but it was fun working with a limited color palette. I've actually come to find as of late that I enjoy the restriction of a limited color palette, and the fact that this was curated specifically to go together. I think it helped because it made me feel like, okay, well, somebody put these colors together specifically in this palette to coordinate. So it took some of the, I don't want to say fear. That's not the right word. It took some of that like trepidation of, not having other things to grab away because somebody put thought into these should all coordinate. But it still gave me that like freedom of being able to mix if I needed to, or to still do what I wanted, but that my desk isn't covered in a bunch of tubes of paint. I find sometimes with bigger sets of markers or pencils or whatnot that I just kind of start like grabbing, and it's overwhelming, and then I end up with a mess on my desk that I have to put away in the end. So it was nice to just, have a little bit of a limitation. So at this point, I realized that I had colored the antlers on the left jackalope and not on the right, and I had actually run out of my original mixture that I used. So these kind of came out looking a little different, but and I had started to do some shading on the jackalope on the left there, and then realized what I had done. And so I was kind of working back and forth. So if I did something on one side on one jackalope, I tried to do that on the other side with the other jackalope, again in an attempt to keep them sort of symmetrical. So this is the point where I switched back to the regular brush, and part of it too was I like trying to, you know, to mix and to figure out my water control on that brush for the way I was painting. Even when I was editing this, there was a lot of like cuts to the footage because I was spending so much time trying to like squeeze the water out of the brush, and I just couldn't get into a rhythm with it like I can with a regular brush, where I'm back and forth between, you know, my water and my paint, and my paint and my water, and then my page, and then my paper towel, and you just kind of get into like a back and forth rhythm, and I couldn't get that with the water brush. So again, and this is just my, you know, my personal preference, like I think going forward for me, I will use the water brushes for like neocolors or Inktense or watercolor pencil. But if I'm just standard painting, I would probably go with a regular brush. It just feels more comfortable to me. And so now I'm starting to move into some of the plants, and I absolutely love this green color. It looks very neon in the pan, so I was a little scared of how it was going to turn out. But once I put it on the paper and it started to dry, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And the paper in this book held up really well to what I threw at it. I wouldn't say this is like a super thick cardstock in the Mythographic books. It's a little thinner than the paper in Kirby Rosanna's books, but it holds up to water a lot better than the U.S. editions of the Kirby books. I find when I work with water in Kirby's books, like feel like I have to rush because the paper just sucks the water up so fast. I don't have enough time to blend it to get any like super harsh lines out. And I felt like with this paper, I had a little bit more time to, you know, kind of play around with things and correct things out if I needed to. Obviously not extensively, and you definitely don't want to like super saturate this paper or scrub at it, because it will pill. And it did kind of, you know, curl up a little bit, but that I was anticipating. And so after this session of working on it, I closed the book once I was sure that it was dry, and I let it sit with a couple things over top of it, and it, you know, straightened itself back out pretty well. And I do have a piece of paper behind my page, just in case it bled through, or, you know, I got a little like aggressive with it. But I didn't have any bleed through issues or anything like that. So the paper does really well. And I was actually watching, I can't remember the name of the channel, but I think her name was Bianca, and she did a gouache tutorial and showed off one of her pictures that she did with gouache in one of these books, and it was gorgeous. Like, mentioned, you know, my live stream recently that I'm trying to learn how to, you know, use gouache. So seeing that she was able to use it in her books to that level was pretty inspiring. So if if I can find it again, I will put her channel name in the description so you guys can go check out the video. But now I am working on some of the flowers, and I decided I was going to use the there's kind of the pink that I'm using. It's called cherry blossom pink, and then there's a lilac, and I had kind of had it in my head that those were what I was going to use for the flowers on this one. And the lilac was pretty light, but the cherry blossom pink very, very vibrant, and I think I kind of crossed them back and forth, and I may have used some of the cherry blossom pink as like a shadow color on the lilac. I can't remember. We'll get to that. But yeah, there was definitely some experimenting on this one. And again, I had attempted to keep things symmetrical, but I think on the flowers, I just kind of was like, I'm just going to paint them in whatever is. So they might not quite match up from the top set of flowers to the bottom set of flowers, but color-wise, I think we tried to stick to a pretty, you know, succinct like pattern here. I think this is where I went in and was using the pink to try and beef up the violet. Yep, so now we're moving down to the bottom set of flowers. And so this is kind of what I was talking about with like the rhythm of the back and forth between the water and the paint, and then the paint and the water, and then, you know, when you realize that you have too much water on your brush, and you know, going in, getting rid of some of that water, and then coming back and cleaning it up, and you just kind of like get into a rhythm with it, and I just couldn't achieve that with the water brush. And so I apologize that you guys can't see the whole like process of what's happening with the paint on the side, and you know, down the road, it would be nice to be able to have some you know, some different like editing, and bring out another camera and, you know, start trying to incorporate some like B-roll in. I just don't feel like I'm confident enough in my editing skills to be able to do that without it being like obnoxious or distracting, and I don't really have the space on my desk for a second camera right now. And the way my desk is currently set up with the one camera, it's on a control arm out across my desk, but I also have a hutch on that side, so I can't really like raise the control arm up to give you guys a wider view. And so then it just ends up becoming a, do you guys want to see me zoomed in on the image, or are we more interested in the paint? And so I tend to just go for more like zoomed in on the image, so you guys can actually see what's happening on the paper. But hopefully someday I will be in a position where I can, you know, start changing things up with the setup and incorporating other things. And it's just not something that I'm, you know, really in a spot to be able to do at the moment. hopefully at some point we take things a step at a time. So there was also a couple times that I thought I had colored all of a certain element, and then I sat back and I was like, oh, hey, there's a little flower that's hidden in there, and then I had to go back, and it was usually when I had moved on to the next element, like right here, I was coloring the flowers and then realized that that little in between his ear, there's leaves that go between the antlers and the ears that I had missed on one side. So this was a little tricky because the bottom of the page was still wet, and I wanted to come in and start doing some shadowing and some detail work on these leaves. So trying to figure out where to put my arm. I could have turned the book, but I feel like, you know, that gets kind of distracting sometimes. So I was just trying to be mindful of not putting my arm in the or my hand in the paint. I'm really glad though that the community chose this picture for our community color this month. I gave you guys three images from this book. We had this one, we had the airplane sardine image, and an elephant. And I actually thought that the elephant was going to be the front runner. I was hoping for either the airplane sardines or this image, and so you guys eked out with the jackalopes in the final hour there, and it's been a really fun project to work on, and I am glad that KP sent me these paints because they were a lot of fun to play with. And I mean, we still have another part of this video to come. I still have to do the teapots and, you know, some detail work, and we were talking about it after the fact on Discord, that these paints have a different feel to them, and I don't know if it's because I'm used to like tube watercolor paint, but these almost have a gouache feel to them. Even mixing a fair amount of water into the pigments, I still felt like they had a thicker texture to them. I wouldn't say it was like, because I've been watching a bunch of gouache tutorials, so I was watching somebody talk about the butter to tea in terms of different levels of like gouache mixing, and I don't know, this was like in between. This felt like in between, I guess, what you would call cream and milk if you were mixing gouache. I definitely didn't feel like I could get it to thin out like I could a standard tube watercolor, and I don't know if maybe that's because of the binder that they use in these paints. Like, it wasn't obstructive in what I was trying to do. It was just different. And so, let's see, where are we at here? So yeah, I'm just going through and trying to do some shading work on these leaves, and so I brought in, I think I mixed for this. There is a darker green. No, actually, I remember what I did with this now. So I used the that lighter green, which is the lime green, and I mixed it with the cobalt blue to get that the green that I'm using now. So this was definitely a mixture. And I'm not sure why I chose to completely go over some of these leaves with that mix. Or if that was just like accidental. I may have had too much water on my brush with some of that. And so we are winding down to the end of this this session. So there will be a part 2. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to join in, again, it's hashtag MythoMarch. You can share with me over on Instagram, and I will go through the hashtag and feature any of your images if you want to work along with us. There is no restrictions on medium. You don't even have to finish it in the month of March. But thank you guys so much for all of your support. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider like, sub. It helps YouTube's algorithm pick my videos up. And I will see you guys in the next one.